Hello and welcome to a Star Wars Unlimited draft. My name is Jared and you're going to be following my draft today. This was done at Mock's Boarding House in Seattle. This was just put on by local players, so this was a very casual play. So nothing too competitive here, but this should help give you an idea of how my draft went and my thought process that went through it. Now to start with, obviously we're going to take out all of our leaders, and there's always a few leaders that we're looking for in Secrets of Power, and you can see that we got two of them. Leia Organa, Sly Moore, and Colonel Yularen. Leia is considered to be one of the best leaders, so right away I'm interested in taking that one. And Colonel Yularen is also probably in the top 3. I'm personally not as high on that one as compared to some other people, but Yularen is still solid to play. And you can see me here, I'm actually marking down the leaders that are to my left because we start off by passing our leaders to the right. And the reason I'm doing this is because I want to choose my leader based on what I think is also going to get passed to me. And I can see to my left, there is no Leia there. And Leia being one of the best leaders, I'm very likely to take Leia as my starting leader. Which is exactly what I do. So I pass the Sly Moore and I pass the Yularen. So I already got a strong leader. And then past to us, we got the Mon Mothma and the Luthen Rail. This is a little less ideal, as I don't want to get stuck in heroic. But Luthen I do like more than Mon Mothma, so I take that. And that leaves me with Sly Moore. So overall, not bad for leaders. Leia is excellent. Luthen and Sly Moore I don't have a whole lot of experience with, but I think they actually can be pretty playable. But more importantly, I did end up with both heroic and villainous options. A disaster scenario is when you end up with only heroic or only villainous, and then you end up in a not great position to actually take what it is you're looking for. So let's start off with Pack 1. We got Naboo Security Force. The Chandrillin sponsor is great for Leia. Republic Warwalker is a solid red. Let's Call It War, one of the best red cards. Deal 3 damage to a unit if you have the initiative. Deal 2 damage to another unit in the same arena. And there's also a Coronet here, which is also a fantastic blue heroic card. That's the 5 resource space unit that gets, it's a 4/6 that has Restore 2 and gives all your other units Restore 1. And you can actually see me here thinking about what to pick. Like I got the 3 cards to the front. It's one of these 3, right? The sponsor, the Coronet, or Let's Call It War. And I take the Let's Call It War, which in a vacuum, I do think is a pretty solid choice here. It's solid removal. That can go with Sly Moore, that can go with Luthen Rail, that can go with Leia. That's a safe, solid choice. But I think that's the decision I made in a vacuum. In Star Wars Unlimited Draft, you have more information available to you than that, because I can look down the table and see what leaders are to my right that are going to be passing to me. And because of that, I can see that I'm going to be being passed from a Mon Mothma, a Yularen, and a Deidre player, and a Bail Organa, Sly Moore, and a Deidre player. So there's a good chance that a lot of them could end up also being in red. But more importantly, the 2 players to my right who are passing to me in packs 1 and pack 3 are not blue heroic. Like there's no Leia there. So in just like looking at the information on my playmat, I do think the Let's Call It War was probably the safer choice. But I ended up picking flexibility over power. And this was probably a situation where I probably should have gone for power and taken the Coronet. I haven't really played it a whole lot before, so that's also a learning process to me. All right, going into pack 2 here. And we already got a Gonk Power Droid right at the front, which is surprising. That's one of the best green commons you can get, I think. There's a Nuke Gunray, Blue Villainy. There's also Dracelian Commandos, a 4/5 ambush plot. Another solid card. ASP Loader, less exciting. And not really seeing a great red follow-up. The Academy Disciplinarian can be okay. So you can see me pulling to the front. I've got Gonk Power Droid or that ambush unit. And I value the Gonk Power Droid a lot. I think just getting that to start off really lets you play ahead of curve and get ahead of your opponent. And much like the, let's call it War pick, that's just a safe one to play in Sly Moore, Luthen, or Leia. Going to pack 3, there's a second Gonk Power Droid. And looking at the other choices here, There's not really a whole lot that I was seeing. Like, there's no really exciting red card. So I just take a second Gonk Power Droid. Which at this time says to me that maybe the people to my right aren't playing green, or maybe they're not really prioritizing it, or taking green cards that isn't with the game plan that they're going for. Because one Gonk Power Droid's good. But what about second Gonk Power Droid? That almost guarantees having a strong turn 1 play and being able to ramp up into something powerful. There is an argument for the Dracelian Commandos there, but that's another one of those... It's a green heroic, which in my head there's still a possibility I could end up being Sly more, maybe doing like a Sly green. And it's early enough that maybe I at the time didn't really want to take heroic cards that highly, just in case. Going into pack 1, pick 4 here. There's a Taylander Shuttle, which is just kind of okay. That's a card that has really underperformed to me. I'm also seeing Disciples Devotion, which can be a solid blue card, and I'm looking at that and thinking to myself, maybe that's for Leia. But man, what a really stinker of a pack. Like, there's nothing here that's really all that exciting to play. Like, there's 2 of the shuttles in the back, which are just not really playable cards that you want, and there's just a lot of low-grade filler. So that leaves you with Disciples Devotion or Taylander Shuttle, and neither feel great. Like, Taylander Shuttle doesn't really work with Leia because you're never going to have the initiative. It could be okay in Sly more, but often enough it doesn't seem to be the case. And Luthen is aggressive enough that it could be the best in Luthen, but right now there's still a possibility that maybe I should be playing Leia. So this was another tough choice. I ended up going to the Disciples Devotion, which again, I don't know if it was necessarily the correct choice. I mean, there really was not a lot of strong options there in any color, frankly. Like, maybe the Crate Veteran, but that's just so filler and when I can get late. Going to pick 5, there's a High Command Consular who's okay. I do like the Strike Force X-Wing as well. Some filler dudes with the Hounds and the Raxian Assembly. But there's also a Beguile. And I actually like Beguile quite a bit. This is the 3-resource event where you look at an opponent's hand and then you can bounce a non-leader unit that costs 6 or less from their field back into their hand. And this is some interaction. And I don't have a whole lot of it yet. And I'm going to take it here because Beguile is also a card that I am more than happy with playing out of aspect. Again, I am trying to stay pretty open here rather than locking into a singular leader early on, at least in the first few picks. And Beguile is one that I would play in any one of these decks. And if I do happen to end up Leia, then that also gives me an off-aspect card to easily use her ability with. All right, next pack. So there's a Kazuda right at the front, which is really surprising to see. Junior Center's okay. Opera Starfighter's not exciting. I don't really care for the AAT. Yeah, just a lot of not great things here. But the most important thing is there is not a single green card. And perhaps that's something I should pick up on. But I do like the Kazuda. And this is the card that I do end up taking out of all the other options here. Mostly because I think also going into this draft, I had a sort of unseen guiding hand in my head, kind of steering me towards Luthen Rail. And that's only because, again, this is a casual draft, mostly meant for practice. I have not actually played Luthen Rail yet at all, or tried to draft him, so maybe subconsciously I'm taking picks as leaning me towards him, which may not necessarily be correct. So in this one, there's a Theed Security, which, you know, it's just a 2-drop for the sake of having a 2-drop, which goes with my other greens. There's also another remote tank who also can be a solid Sentinel unit. Which, looking at these now, I probably am supposed to take the remote escort tank here. Like, there's not a whole lot of Sentinel going on in green heroic, and I take another 2-drop, which probably wasn't correct. I've already got a few. I think I just started needing taking some top-end cards, stuff that slows the opponent down, like that remote tank. And I think my thought process here was maybe I don't want this one because if I do end up playing Luthen Rail, I can't really plot out that tank in a way that feels good. Like, I don't want to delay Luthen's ability. Like, I want that tank out right away. But I think I probably just should have taken the 5/5 Sentinel. So into here, kind of same thought process with Sintakaz, where it can be an okay unit, but she's only really good if you do get to plot out with her. Otherwise, it's just kind of an overcosted dude. And my red options here, still not really strong beyond that. Again, not seeing any green cards. Seeing a lot of red and a lot of yellow. I really don't want to play yellow if I can help it. Maybe if I was more committed to Leia early on, I'd consider some of the weaker yellow space units, but none of these feel particularly good. And because this is a singular pod draft, like I know who my opponent is and one of my first round opponent, and I saw that their leaders also included a Leia. So I take the 2-2 here, which doesn't feel great. I don't mind the cheaper units because with Luthen Rail, they basically all kind of trade up. Like a 2-2 can ostensibly attack for 3. And I think I take the Covert Operative here because I know my first round opponent is going to be a Leia. And the Operative actually is a great anti-Leia card. Just whatever they dump resources into early on, you just capture it and make them waste a lot of time and resources. But then you look at the cards here and it's like, what are we doing? That's a lot of villainy that I really don't want to play. Even if I was Leia, that Shadow Fighter is also not really something I'd want to play, but I'm taking here as like, I'm seeing a lot of yellow, maybe I should be shifting to yellow. Yeah, just a lot of filler cards. We take the Crate Veteran. Don't think any of the other ones would ever make a deck. Those Inspector Shuttles are still there, along with Orn, the rare nobody wants. Yeah, and these last few picks are pretty bad. Faith in Your Friend's Gambit, that's not really playable. You're never going to get that disclose off. And then we get the Duchess Investigators. So overall, first pack is pretty rough. And I do think that all stemmed from just starting with, let's call it war. Like starting with that instead of the Coronet really guided the rest of the draft. And maybe I got a little too tunnel visioned getting those Gonk power droids, which I do like quite a bit. Which, again, seeing one third pick suggested that maybe the player to my right wasn't going to be green, and then maybe I could see some solid green coming my way. But I think he just ended up taking the other green cards, a lot more of the officials and whatnot. So instead what we got here is a lot of, frankly, a lot of underpowered cards. It's just like lacking in stats, lacking in oomph, lacking in interaction. I do like the Let's Call It War, but yeah, it's not really where you want to be. So going to this next pack, I can't anticipate seeing a lot more green, I think, because it is going the other direction. But who knows if that's going to be enough to kind of get the draft back on track. It's a little waffly. So let's go into pack 2. There's a Defense Fleet X-Wing. Not really one I'm looking to play. Unveiled Might is a great plot card, though. Solid green one. I do need some plot. Interim Coalition. Again, it feels a little understated for 6. Not really something I'm looking for. Oppression Breeds Rebellion is not really playable. And then we get a worthless rare. And then the Boo 2/3 Saboteur. So there's, again, even if I was looking to be green or red, there's really not a whole lot in here that I'm that excited about. So I'm probably just going to take the Unveiled Might here, because that is going to give me a plot card for Luthen. And I think by these picks, it's pretty clear that I'm going to be playing Luthen Rail. So going here, look at that. We got Reckless Rebel, a 3PO. There's a Naboo Security Force. Okay, so that does feel better. Naboo Security Force is one of the better green commons. Just getting that high toughness Sentinel, really slow your opponent's game plan down. And it has enough power that being able to claim the initiative and get those swings in, and then get another Sentinel trigger off of that could be huge. So the Naboo Security Force does help, but that's also my most expensive card right now. And that's a very defensive card. Senator's Aid, don't want that. There is a Charged with Corruption and another Naboo Security Force and a Nubian Star Skiff. And this is going to be a couple choices. Looking back at this, I think the Naboo Security Force is probably the pick. I ended up going the Star Skiff just because I wanted something that cost 4. Because I had the 2 Gonk Power Droids, and be able to go turn 1 Gonk Power Droid, turn 2 attack with the Power Droid, play a Star Skiff is pretty powerful. But I also lack the officials to let the Star Skiff let me restore 2 on attack. So maybe that Naboo Security Force was a better choice here. There's another Unveiled Might. There's Renowned Dignitaries, the 5/6 Overwhelm, where you heal if you have a bunch of officials, which I don't really, so I'm not really looking to play that. And there's an Alexander Callus. Like, if I need some top-end power, like, that's something that costs 7. So what else would I take out of this? Maybe the other Unveiled Might? I really don't think I do. Again, there's a lot of decision points here. Really curious on your thoughts on it, because I don't feel I necessarily navigated this draft particularly well, but also just looks like a tough seat. Like, I think there is a lot of just weak cards coming my way, and I haven't really seen anything that really wants to pull me into a singular color. There's a Daro Commando, who's a dude. Sudden Ferocity, another plot card, solid. And yeah, and that Jade Squadron Patrol. So if I was Leia, Jade Squadron Patrol would have been great. Daro Commando sure is a 3/4. That's pretty much all he's ever played out to me being. Like, that's just a filler card. Sudden Ferocity, though, always happy to see one of those. Another potential plot card for Luthen Rail. So if I'm going to be green-red Luthen, that does give me at least 2 plot cards between Unveiled Might and Sudden Ferocity, which is good enough to me. Like, I feel having those at least 2 gives you usually a pretty solid chance of having one of those in your resource row, so that you got something to do with it on your flip turn. We got another Taylander Shuttle in the next pack, which again is just sure is a card. An ISB Shuttle, Contraband Starhopper, Convene the Set. Yeah, just not a lot of really good playable cards. I guess I take the Taylander Shuttle now. Now that I'm a little more committed to Luthen, maybe I can keep the initiative off enough that I can sometimes get a spy token. Stolen Starpath unit, not really a playable rare. Lead Security Force. And then a lot of Yellow Heroic and a Valiant Commando. Valiant Commando is also just not really what you want for limited. I think it's better for constructed play. Paying 3 for a 3/3 doesn't feel great. So I'd rather just take the Naboo Security Force, and because there are going to be enough upgrades out there that oftentimes that could be a 2-resource 3/4. Another Faith in Your Friends. We got the Make a Spy, Ambitions Reward. Trade Route Taxation isn't really a playable card, and yeah, just some junk. So even if I wanted to end up being more on the blue heroic side for Leia, we're still not seeing a whole lot of it come this way either. So I don't know if there just wasn't a whole lot opened, or the good blue heroics, or blue cards that would be good for Leia, are just being taken. Again, I am sitting directly opposite of a player that did open Leia in their draft, and they're definitely going to be trying to play Leia. And I think at this point, I'm probably getting the vibes that the player to my right that has Mon Mothma is likely drafting Mon Mothma, and maybe he's taking all of the other blue official cards. And just more red and yellow. I just take another 2/2 here, which probably wasn't correct. I think at this point I just lost count of how many turn 1 plays I actually had, right? Because you don't want too many, but you also don't want too few, and I think I was playing it safe and trying to make sure I had enough. And I am trying to go by the competitive rule set where you're not allowed to look at your pile in between picks. You can look at them during the review period between packs, but not between picks. I probably have enough dewdrops, if I'm being honest with myself. Even just getting a 6/5 just to have a little more top end, just a little more power, was probably the right choice. Even if it wasn't a particularly good card, it's going to be more helpful than some more cheap, weaker stuff. And these last few, yeah, nothing really playable in my deck except for what? A 3PO? Like, that does not feel good. You don't really want 3PO, and oh man, you probably don't want that in any deck, frankly. Just a few more picks left. Senator's Aid is not really playable, so I end up with a Reckless Rebel, who also isn't very good. That probably is meant to be more of a Leia card, but it's at least a unit. a Hunting Assassin droid, Elite Squad, and a Scour the Archives. I am surprised by seeing the Hunting Assassin droid. Like, that's one of the better red villainy commons for sure. Not really one that I can play out of aspect and feel good about it, but I do feel like that says a lot about what is being passed to me in Pack 2. Well, we got the Dara Commando anyway, which, like I said, that's a guy. And then it's not over yet, which is basically unplayable. Yeah, so let's do another quick review of what we've already gotten. And we got probably too many early plays. We do have Kazuda, who is, one of the better ones at high amount of hit points. The Gong Power Droids, potentially getting Kazuda down early would be solid. The Gong Power Droids getting the Skiff down early would be solid, but like, I'm looking at my picks here, and I'm thinking to myself, how do I win? Like, how am I overwhelming the opponent to the point where I can actually win? And I just don't have that right now. My only interaction is Let's Call It War and a Beguile, which are both solid. But with my units being all just on the weaker side, I don't actually know how I can keep up. Especially since, again, if I go up against that Leia, I'm thinking that Leia is going to steamroll me. I don't stand a chance. So going into Pack 3, like, I need to find strong units, strong win conditions, and really just hope for the best. I mean, there's a lot of dead picks in there. And in Star Wars Unlimited, when you have to have 30 playable cards, you don't have a whole lot of room to have picks that end up doing nothing for your deck. So hopefully we can find some power in our last pack, and okay, that's pretty good. There you go. All right, Shadow Crawler is kind of the exact kind of card I would hope to see. Since I am lacking power, that 6/7 ambush is a great one to have. The Crosshair is also okay. There was another Star Skiff, but yeah, we're going to Windmill Slam that Ambush Crawler. That's exactly what I do. So that gives me 2 7-resource cards that I feel okay about. A Shadow Walker and the Alexander Callus. If I could help it, I think I would rather have 2 Shadow Walkers. But that at least gives us some power. In Pack 3, pick 2. Yeah, Senator Chuchi's. Man, if I was Leia, that'd be great. There's an Aggressive Negotiations, which is a card I think I've personally undervalued quite a bit. There's also a Mina Bonteri, an Outer Rim Constable, so a few playable cards here. I ended up going with the Mina, because during that pack review, I realized a lot of my turn 1 plays suck. Like, it's a lot of the 2/1s or the 2/2s for 1. And I end up taking the 2/4 Senator, because that does turn on a couple things. One, it's a 2/4 with Restore 1. Right? And that's a really solid thing to start off with. More importantly, she is an official, so there could be a world where I get her down and I have the Star Skiff down, allow me to actually attack with the Skiff and get that Restore 2. Pack 3, pick 2 is a Contraband Starhopper, which sure is a guy. Charged with Treason. Now there's a little more interaction here. Disclose red, you can deal 5 damage to a unit. And then a lot of blue at the end there. Nothing really playable in green. We will take the Charge with Treason though. Like I was saying earlier, I was lacking interaction. And that's a solid one. And I feel I did have enough red picks that the double disclose on it shouldn't be too difficult to do. And being able to do 5 is just enough. And another reason I'm taking that card, because in my head I'm thinking, if a Cruel Commandos comes down, I need to be able to answer it. And Charge with Treason does exactly that. Which is something we haven't seen at all, is that we are trying to go green. And we haven't seen any of the really solid green Sentinel cards. We haven't seen any Cruel Commandos, and we haven't seen any of the Consular's Cruisers. So I just don't know if not a whole lot happened to be open, or if they were all snatched up that quickly. Budget Scheming and a Senator's Aid, again, not really playable. There's some Corellian Hounds, which is kind of filler, and yeah, again, just... I could take the Corellian Hounds, but when that pack wheels back around, there's not going to be anything left that I'm going to want there. So I have a 5/5 for 5. Sure, it has the ability that it can come into play readied if your opponent has no units in the ground arena, but in my experience, that just really doesn't happen all that often. Is there anything in here that could help out? Diplomatic Envoy. Again, more filler. There's a Crucible, which is not a card that I've really favored. And there we start seeing Cruel Commandos and Dogmatic Shock Squad, which is surprising, but not really ones I want to take. So I don't really like the Crucible a whole lot, and I don't think my deck's the kind of one that wants that. So I'm thinking as well, Diplomatic Envoy. I'd rather play that 2/2 over some of the 2/1s, I guess. Maybe it'll let me ambush in the future, but just not a very, very exciting pick at all. How about a second Diplomatic Envoy? Then we got another Hunting Droid, ISB Shuttle. So a lot of villainy coming this way, which again, feels surprising, but there's nothing really playable in my deck here except for what? Another Diplomatic Envoy? Man, that feels bad. So I know, like, I did not navigate this draft correctly or well at all. A Populous Champion. There's the Ando Commission, who is a Sentinel. I haven't really cared for that guy too much, simply because that 3 hit points is low. He's going to die to most 2-drops, and that feels bad. Interim Coalition, though, it's a 6 resource, something that hits hard, I guess. You can kind of see me debating here between the Ando Commission and the 6/5, and I end up going with the 6/5. Maybe there's a world where Ando Commission should have been the pick, just so I did have some kind of Sentinel, or even a potential sideboard plan in case I end up going against a more aggressive deck, like another Sly Moore. But again, I think I'm still in that mindset of, I don't know how my deck's going to win, I just need to get some big dudes. And now we happen to see all the good layout cards. There's another Chandlerland sponsor. There's a Cadal Connix. She's a 3/2 with plot that just defeats a non-unique upgrade, so basically an experience token, which is, that's kind of whatever. Versus the Dracelian Commandos, that's the 4/5 ambush for 5 resource, but you can also plot it out. And if I'm going to be Luthen, that can be a solid card to plot out, and I do like ambush a lot. Versus a 3 resource 3/2. The Heroic Arc 170. Not a card I actually haven't played a whole lot here, and I wonder if this was potentially the correct choice. So I have my choice between 2 4-resource units. The Heroic Arc 170, where if you control a damaged unit, you can deal 2 damage to an enemy unit. Or the Coruscant City Police, which is a 5/4 for 4.
I feel confident about one of my colors.
And I kind of wonder which one would be better here. And I think I end up going with the Coruscant Undercity Police because at this point, I have the charge with treason. And I want to make sure I can hit that double red disclose to deal 5 to something. So I end up taking that. That's a tough call. Maybe I need a little more space presence. And we're going to here, we got a B2 Emo and another 2/2 Hidden Rebel. Guess the B2 Emo, I guess. Just in case if I have enough Heroic, maybe I can use that to get some extra Sentinel. And then I got 4 cards here that I cannot play in the deck. Which is a bad sign, right? Because that means going into the end here, I'm just going to be really picking up scraps or basically having dead picks. Anything helpful in the last few here? Nope, not especially, so that's more unplayable cards I'm just not going to use. And a couple more yellow cards. Yeah, so I am not even sure if I'm even going to have enough playables to put a deck together, which is pretty bad. All right, so not the best draft in the world, but we are trying to put together a Luthen Green, and let's see how that can potentially come together. And here's what the final deck build looks like, and you can see the problem here, right? That is a lot of 1s. And that I don't really think that's something that Luthen Rail really wants. I'm playing like a 3PO, I'm playing like a B2 Emo, I'm playing Ambition's Reward. There's just a lot of clunker cards in here that I really don't want, and I'm really not that excited to play. So I think overall the deck just really, it lacks power. That's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 turn 1 units. That's a bit much. I'm usually happy having like 6 to 8 turn 1 units. So this was too much. I don't know if I was just miscounted and misremembered what it is I had and what it is that I needed, or if this was just a tough seat to draft. What were your thoughts? Please let me know, because I really don't know on this one. This was a very, very difficult one for me to navigate. Maybe that Let's Call It War pick really skewed all my decisions, but I didn't feel like I saw a whole lot of potential like blue heroic or things that would make me want to play Leia early on, that I felt comfortable doing that. Yeah, I even got Covert Operative going into the deck, which I actually do think is a solid sideboard card. Covert Operative is a good sideboard option against Leia specifically, but you're not really looking to mainboard that anywhere else. So this is a snapshot grade. This deck feels like a 3 out of 10. It's just not where I want to be at all. And it does feel bad. And I have the Ambitions reward there because I don't think I had any other units that I could play over it. Well, we'll have to see how the deck itself actually plays out, and maybe I can still get some wins with it. Let's take a look at a game. My round 1 opponent is against B, who, like I said, sure enough, ended up on Leia. Interestingly, Leia red, which makes me wonder what they saw in red that made them want to build that instead of the typical Leia yellow. Get a good shot of both our hands here. You can see my opening hand. I do have a Gonk Power Droid with the potential of the Covert Operative right after that to maybe capture the first thing that they try to power up with some experience tokens. But I resource Ambitions Reward, and then probably going to also resource the Taylander Shuttle, because I did win the initiative from the die roll, which means I'm going to get that Gonk Power Droid down, and I am going to get that Gonk Power Droid attack off right away. So my 3 resources is going to be committed to something that costs 4, so I might as well just resource the Taylander Shuttle. Which maybe that wasn't correct. Maybe I did want that since I have the initiative and I want to be able to get some spy tokens. Alright, they play the Senate Warden, the 2/2. Where when defeated, you can disclose blue to get an experience token. My draws were the Shuttle and the Coruscant City Police. I'm just going to put that 2/2 away. Alright, let's send in the Gonk Power Droid, get in for a full base damage. We're on the board. And here we got a Leia activation showing the aggressive negotiation. So that red card that I passed on to take something else made it all the way over to them. So now the Senate Warden's a 3/3, and I'm going to use the Covert Operative to capture it right away because that does waste a resource for this turn, and more importantly, protects my Gonk Power Droid. And they just play an ASP loader right afterwards. So early on, this actually feels pretty good, right? I've reduced them down to a 1/4, restore 1. I took away the turn 1 play. I basically got them to waste 3 resources and forced them into weaker plays. But now I got some choices in my hand. I got the Coruscant City Police, I got the Nubian Starskiff, and I have Kazuda. I end up resourcing the Starskiff since I don't have any officials to get that restore off of. But I wonder if, looking back on that, maybe that was not the correct choice. Maybe I actually want that anyway. Oh, I'm sorry. I resourced the 5/4, the Coruscant City Police. Yeah, I was going to say the Starskiff I think I actually want because sometimes you just want a good space unit. Yep, so we're going to attack for 2 and deal 2 damage to the base. Looks like B is going to go with that aggressive negotiations just to take out the Covert Operative. They're saying, I really want my 2/2 back. They'd also get the restore 1, so their base goes down to only 2 damage on it. But now they have a resource left to activate Leia. So it's, do you keep building up the ASP Laborer to get that better restore, or do you want to get a 3/3 Warden? Neither seem particularly exciting. But I'm going to go Let's Call It War with the initiative, dealing 3 damage to the Laborer, 2 damage to the other unit, and that leaves B with nothing. So this early game, I'm actually feeling pretty good. Like, this looks like I'm controlling the board. They've got no units. However, I don't really have a unit either. All I have is a Gonk Power Droid. So while I am taking out a lot of their cards and taking out resource plays and all that, I also am not really threatening Leia's base here. Especially as we get closer and closer to that flip turn. There's the AAT Incinerator, which deals 1 damage to the Gonk Power Droid, but awkwardly also forces some damage onto their own base because they have no other leader or other unit to deal a damage to. So free 2 base damage, we take those. Guess we'll just send in the Gonk Power Droid, get another base damage, bring them up to 6. They claim initiative. So now I can get Luthen. Did I have something to plot out here? I don't believe so. Nope. So we'll use Luthen to push a little more base damage, bring them up to 8. Allow me to play a Kazuda for 3 since I had the Gonk Power Droid activation, but sadly, no other follow-up after that. Like, I have 2 unused resources this turn, and that feels pretty bad. Then we got the second Gonk Power Droid. We also drew the Shadow Walker, though, and I do have a Gonk Power Droid down, which means if I can get the Gonk Power Droid attack, I can play a Shadow Walker this turn. But we're also looking at a Leia deploy, right? And if Leia deploys, there's a good chance that the remote escort tank is going to come down and get the Sentinel set up right away. In B's hand, we can see the Rebel official does get resourced. So here comes Leia. And sure enough, they plot out a remote escort tank, which I believe I saw another one in their hand. I also saw Let's Call It War. So now we've got to choose where do we want it to have Sentinel. It's going to be on the remote escort tank, which makes sense. So I got a 5/5 Sentinel, a scary Leia, and some decisions for me. I'm going to send in the Gonk Power Droid, get that attack activation, and then when it dies, I can use Luthen's ability to deal 2 extra damage to something. And I'm going to put on the remote escort tank. Reason being is that I can now attack with Luthen, defeat the escort tank, and then my Shadow Walker can ambush into Leia. And if Leia happens to attack either one of my units, then the Shadow Walker can actually defeat her right away. Which would be great. Instead, Leia's going to go to base. Going to reveal the other remote escort tank in hand, give an experience token to the AAT Incinerator, bringing it up to a 4/7. More scary is that for me, now I can see that there is a second escort tank that I am going to have to deal with. And sure enough, I used Luthen to defeat remote tank number 1. And he goes to base. AAT comes in, so we got 8 damage on both bases. And now I've got a choice, right? I can start taking out some units here, because I do have that ambush walker waiting in the wings. So we'll use Kazuda to swing in for 4 to Leia. And then finished her with the Shadow Crawler. So now board state-wise, this looks pretty good. I've got 3 solid units. They've only got 1. I still have my leader out, and I've got a lot of damage that could potentially threaten the base. The important part here is that I need to be able to keep this pressure up. You can see one of my draws is C-3PO, which that sucks. And that's one of the issues I had, right? When I had too many of those turn 1 plays, it just increases the chances of me drawing some really weak cards later on. Not really what you want. And it looks like I do I actually stay at 6 resources here. Yeah, and we got a Let's Call It War coming down, taking out the Shadow Crawler and the Luthen, which is pretty brutal. So just because of that alone, now I'm in trouble. Luthen only having 2 hit points left. It can attack into the AAT Incinerator, bring it up to 4. But now, watching this, it's, you know, I can't really push the base damage, right? Because I'm already losing on board. We both have 8. They have a 4-7. I have a 2-2 left. They did already spend some resources this turn, so they can't have anything too strong afterwards. But I'm in a tough spot. I end up going for the base damage here, which I don't know if that's necessarily correct. That brings the base up to 10 total base damage. Yep, and use Leia to show that remote escort tank again. Now there's a second experience token on that AAT Incinerator. Now it's a 5-8. Now I'm really in trouble. I do have the ambush unit in my hand, which lets me do a little bit. With Luthen's ability, I could do 6 damage to the AAT. Which looks like that just might be the play. Basically sacrificing it to deal 6 to the AAT. Set myself up to maybe finishing it off next turn. Or, in hindsight, looking at this, I think a smart choice probably would have been doing this first. Getting that 6 damage on the AAT. Doing that before I attack with the Luthen, instead of getting in for 2 base damage. Because if I did that first, then I could use Luthen to finish off the AAT. And that was not a decision I made, so now I've got 13 base damage, and just to use up my resources, I play a 3PO. And they have a Defense Fleet X-Wing. And I'll claim initiative. Which is a good sign. Being able to claim initiative here actually helps a lot, because now I can use 3PO to defeat the AAT Incinerator. So a bit of a lucky break for me here, being able to claim that initiative, because if I was not able to do that, I'm looking at taking another 5 base damage, and then I'm really losing. There's a charge with treason in my hand. So we'll start off with using 3PO to finish off the AAT. Get that down before a potential remote escort tank just completely clogs up the ground. I still have the Star Skiff in hand. Yep, there's that tank. Sure enough. Now I'm thinking maybe I just need to go space somehow, or maybe stop that 1-4 Sentinel in space from getting bigger from Leia. Which is a real threat. Because sure enough, they're using Leia to give that an experience token. Now it's a 2-5 Sentinel. And that can follow up with the Theed Security, but because they have an experience token, it's a 3-4. Value! Look, my deck sucks. I want to take anything I can get at this point. You can see the Leia player really considering their options. Do they attack in for 2? I don't think they've got anything else for 1 resource. If I had to guess, probably supposed to just claim with the initiative so you can attack with the remote escort tank and deal 5. But instead they do take the 2, so I go to 15 base damage, but I get to claim the initiative. And this is pretty big for me, because like I said, I had that charge with treason in hand. And now I'll be able to use that to clear out the remote tank. And then all I have to deal with is their 2-5 Sentinel. I'm still at 6 resources. I stopped resourcing a while ago because I'm not picking up anything expensive to play, so why bother? All I've got are these dorky cheap units in my deck. Well, there you see I do go to 7, which says something. So first things first, pay 4. And sure enough, charged with treason. Disclose red red. There's an Alexander Callus and the Inner Rim Coalition. And that's likely why I did resource up to 7. Accidentally showed I had Daro Commando in my hand. Don't worry about it. So now I've got the 7 resources ready to play Callus when I have the opportunity to. And now we're back in the game. Like we're in it. Oh, but that Strike Force X-Wing dealing 2 damage to a redded unit just lets them take out a Luthen. Which is very obnoxious. I go for 3 to base. I don't know if that's correct. Yeah, a Nimble Prowse comes down and taps down the Star Skiff. I get to play it, follow up with the Daro Commando. I was probably supposed to just get that 4 damage onto the Strike Force X-Wing while I could, to potentially set up taking initiative and attacking into it to defeat that right away, especially if that's going to get just completely battleshipped. Now there's a sudden ferocity on it as well. So that 1/4 Sentinel is suddenly a 6/6 Sentinel? Yeah, 6/6 Sentinel. And I'm at 21 damage on my base, which is a little rough. Now I do have means of dealing with it. That Beguile is still somewhere in the deck, and if I can draw that, that's going to really slow down Leia's game plan, and it might buy me just enough time to allow all my ground units to really start getting that damage in. But as you can see, I don't have that. I got the Callus, the Inner Rim Coalition, the Unveiled Light is in there. So nothing too great. And I open with just playing the Inner Rim Coalition. I don't know why. I don't know what the thought process is playing that instead of just getting some attacks in. I suppose this allows me to answer if they play any ground unit. I can use the Daro Commando and the Theed Security to attack into them. Maybe that's the thought process, but I'm basically leaving myself open to taking a lot of space damage. And this is where that complete lack of interactions feels pretty bad. There's another 3 damage coming in from the X-Wing. I guess I'll just send in for 4. Oh, the Inner Rim Coalition is a official. That's why I did that. Right, because that's allowing me to restore 2. So I go back down to 22. So now an X-Wing attack doesn't kill me anymore. I only go to 28. It's not death. It's not looking good though, right? Because even if I am able to, even if I claim initiative here and stop the X-Wing, or the defense X-Wing, I should say. The Strike Force X-Wing can still finish me. And there's going to put yet more experience counters on it for whatever reason. That does give me time to at least get an attack in, deal 3 damage to their base. Yeah, and that's just a ton of damage coming through. Yep, I claim initiative at 28, and I would need a way to stop both flyers here. In retaliation, just to kill my Theed Security seems hateful. And then they got the 2/3 anyway. And that's just going to be enough. And then there's the Beguile. Yeah, wouldn't you know it? I think there's maybe 8 cards left in the deck at that point, so game 1's going to go to Leia here. You can really see all the weak units really punishing me and just giving me not great late plays. And now I've got to see if I can do anything in my sideboard. And there really isn't. I don't know why I'm looking. I can maybe use Inspector Shuttles because they like revealing their hand. In fact, that's probably going to be better than the 2/2 green envoys, so maybe I'll bring that in. Alright, let's go into game 2. Maybe this one will go better for us. I don't really know how. Even after this first game, I still don't see a whole lot of options for me to really get ahead. We do have some strong opening plays. In my hand is the Shadow Walker, the Agent Callus, the Mina Bonteri, and Taylander Shuttle. And I am starting off with the initiative. I think there's a Crate Veteran that's going to get resourced. And I think I end up resourcing the Callus. No, I'm sorry, I did not. I kept both my 7s because they're my only quote unquote win conditions. Yeah, there's the 2/2 Rebel and some other clunker down there. So I'm probably gonna open up with Mina. I have my first 2 turns figured out. Anything after that, I'll just draw into it. So let's get the Mina Bonteri down. Let's see what B ends up doing. B puts down the 2/2 hidden unit, but all of their cards in their hand are heroic, so they actually can't give it an experience token, which is very unfortunate for them. I just drew that operative, so they end up playing something they want to power up. That lets me capture it. Which I end up taking out the unit here. And I wonder if that was potentially a mistake. Since I do have that 2/4, that was just going to capture it anyway. Maybe I'm just supposed to wait until I do that. And they get the Populous Champion to 3/5, which does spend all their resources. See, another potential mistake is that because I took out that unit, they have less actions they can do, which means I play the Taylander Shuttle, and they get the initiative. So now my Taylander Shuttle is just a crappy 2/4 space unit. So yes, I do think I was probably just supposed to get some base damage on there, and if they hit my base back, well then I can start restoring with Mina. Or if they put experience tokens on it, with 4 resources I can capture it. So that was a pretty early mistake that I even caught for myself after I did it here in this seat. So now I've got a Mina that's going to die to the Populous Champion. Taylander Shuttle that's not going to give me any spies. And this is what I was kind of talking about with that Taylander Shuttle just not really playing out great. Like if you can't keep the initiative, it just doesn't really do anything. You're paying too much for too little. They're actually going to give the experience token to the Populous Champion first. Bring it up to a 4/6. And look at that. You can even see me getting ready to attack that shuttle, thinking I'd get a spy. But nope. So I guess I just get the Mina attack off first, before she dies. And surprisingly here, they just go to base, dealing 4 damage. Allowing me to deal 2. So now we're at parity, but again, I've got some restore going on. And their follow-up is just the Aubrek Starfighter, the 2/3 with grit. And that feels bad. I have no other 4 resource turn play aside from a Covert Operative that doesn't even have a target. That's embarrassing. That's not good. So all I've done is play 2 4s each turn, at each one an increasing resource cost. It's pretty bad. Now you can see in my hand I have both Charge the Treason and Let's Call It War, the Naboo Security Force, Alexander Callus, and the Shadow Walker. So for once I actually got nothing but big solid cards in my hand. But now it's like, what do I resource here? I kind of need all of these if I want to survive the late game at all, and that's where Leia takes over. I could put the Charge with Treason down because I don't have the double red disclose. But that leaves me with a Let's Call It War that I'm not going to get the initiative to do. If I put the Let's Call It War down, that leaves me with a Charge with Treason that I don't have 2 red to disclose. And that's pretty rough. Which is why I end up putting the Charge with Treason down, just because I'm more likely to be able to cast the Let's Call It War. On the bright side, I can discloud with Mina after the Strike Force X-Wing defeats her, letting me draw a card. That's something. I end up drawing Sudden Ferocity, which would have been great if it was in my resource row, but it's not. It's now my Luthen flip turn just looking pretty bleh. And now it's, where do I really want to put these things? How do I want to play this out? I don't have anything else to play for 5 resources. I have the Sudden Ferocity for 3, but that means it's not in my resource row. We don't have the Unveiled Might in there either. So my 5 resource turn is just going to be really underutilized. I've basically been playing behind from the start of this particular game. 3, 2, 4 do-nothings, more or less, versus a board that is just snowballing pretty quickly. So I can deploy Luthen, period. Yep, and there's that remote escort tank to power up that starfighter. And now it's a 3/4 grit. But that also means all other resources are used up, right? So, I have that Sudden Ferocity in my hand. I could potentially use that, get it on the shuttle, and just take out that space unit. And maybe start taking out space units. Or do I want to take out this Populous Champion? So I'm going to send to the Covert Operative in that so that Luthen defeats the X-Wing. That's something. I'm taking another 4 damage to my base, though. I'm already up to 8. I'm looking at taking another 11. So now it's, do I want a Ferocity Luthen to defeat this Populous Champion? Or do I want to get this Taylander shuttle up to defeat this Starfighter? I do have a Let's Call It War. I am going the Ferocity on the shuttle because we saw how good their space presence was before. Another 3 damage to my base. I go up to 11. I use that shuttle to defeat that at least. B claims initiative. And what do I do here? I have a Luthen that can attack. Like if I go into the Populous Champion, it's going to have 4 damage on it. That feels bad. Yeah, we'll just go 2 more to base. Now we're going to go up to the 6 resource turn. That's the Leia flip turn. My board is not looking great. Thankfully, I've got strong 6 and 7 resource turn plays. We got the Naboo security force that can defend myself. At 7, I have the Ambush Walker and Agent Callus. An immediate flip for Leia. Plots out that Strike Force to deal the last 2 damage to the Taylander shuttle. That's pretty brutal. 2 Strike Force X-Wings over there. Ugh. Yeah, not ideal. So let's get that security force down, show the Theed security. So I at least have a Sentinel to protect myself. They just play an ASP loader droid. Now this is actually a pretty big turn here, as it's all I can do left. Have left to do right now is attack with Luthen Rail and deal something 2 damage, or I claim initiative. And I think I make a pretty big mistake here. Can you guess what it is? I attack with Luthen. That seems incorrect. I get a little damage on Leia, sure, but the Naboo security force only has Sentinel this turn. I think claiming there first allow me to attack with the security force on the next turn to take out, say, the Populous Champion was probably going to be much better here. Because as you saw, B just claimed. And now I lose my Sentinel. and they can start pushing way more base damage. More importantly, now Luthen is not protected. I have Callus and Shadow Walker in hand, so I should be able to at least counterplay something here. But imagine if they play that remote escort tank that we have seen multiple times. I believe they have 2 of those as well. If one of those comes down, then what? That feels pretty bad. So we have Leia with 2 damage on her, a popular champion with 2 damage on him, and the ASP loader. 11 base damage to 6, and I'm playing from super behind. Yeah, we can already see in B's hand that remote escort tank is indeed there. They actually go with a Leia attack, disclosing the blue lose the Force card, whatever it's called. I can't remember the exact name of it, which gives them an experience token onto the X-Wing, which protects them from Luthen's ability. That's something. And maybe that's their whole game plan. Naboo Security Force takes out that populist. And then we take 4 damage to the base from that X-Wing. But more importantly, this does allow me to get that Shadow Crawler out and use it to defeat Leia. Or I could use the Callus just to deal 2 damage to the ASP loader and Leia Organa and give Luthen +2 power. End up going with the Shadow Crawler here. I just think the getting that instant attack and removing of Leia seems much better. And being able to get that down before a remote escort tank protects her. Which again, was pretty fortunate in my seat that the tank didn't come down. Almost surprising that it didn't. I'm also still up to 21 damage in the base, and I'm taking 4 damage from a space unit every single turn right now. It's still not looking very good. Yep, and there's the tank about an action too late. Yep, now let's claim the initiative here. No need to attack with Luthen just to deal 2 to a ASP loader droid. But this 1 damage from the ASP loader droid is actually very relevant, right? Because now I'm on a 2-turn clock to the space unit. And I also have all this big ground units that I also have to worry about. And you can see in my draws, I'm just getting a lot more weak 2 units. There's a Gonk power droid in there, and like the Rebellion hidden unit. I can't remember the name of it at the moment. Just not great stuff. And that's where a lot of the punishment from the draft process itself is starting to show itself. So how do I get out of this? Well, we got options. We still have Naboo Security Force down, plus a Shadow Crawler. Like, cleaning up the ground board shouldn't be that difficult. I had the Let's Call It War, which could potentially be used to take out that Strike Force X-Wing. Yeah, so we attack the Security Force into the remote escort tank. We can disclose a green card to get Sentinel back on. We use Luthen's ability to do 2 damage to the Strike Force. Show that Theed security. What's more helpful here? That Shadow Crawler or Luthen? Go with the Luthen. As maybe just being able to attack for 6 on the ground is just that important to me. Like, if I'm going to be able to turn around and start dealing any damage to their base at all, I kind of need that Shadow Crawler because I've done almost nothing. Just take out the ASP loader droid, I guess. Punishing 1 comes down, which is also pretty bad. That gets raid 1 for every damage unit that I have on my side of the board. And there's 2 right now, so it's basically a 5/5. I can use Let's Call It War, deal 3 to the Punishing 1, and then kill the X-Wing. And there they give it an experience unit, a token. And I still have 5 resources up. Again, I need something that can just take that out. If I can get the Beguile, that would be enough to buy me a turn. And maybe I can start slowly turning this around. And I drew Darrow Commando and Unveiled Light. And I'm just dead to the space unit. Yep. Yep. They got it. That was a classic scenario of all my units being far too weak to deal with how big theirs got very, very quickly. A little lack of interaction. Playing some like D tier, a lot of D and C minus style cards in the deck, which is not really exciting. Unfortunately, I did not have the hard drive space to be able to record many of the other matches. This deck did finish 1 and 2. I was able to defeat the Sly Moore player, and then lost to the Mon Mothma player. Both players who are directly to my right. So I got to see all the green cards that they ended up taking. Yeah, both players to my right ended up in green. So certainly did not navigate this draft at all properly. I felt like I played the games as best as I could. A couple of key mistakes in there, which I did point out along the way. But hopefully this gives you an idea of how not to draft a Luthen Rail deck. More importantly, let me know your thoughts on that actual draft process, because that seemed like a tough one to navigate. I'm curious on anyone else's thoughts, but thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoyed.